You may know him best as a drummer for Broadway's finest hits, including Waitress and Mean Girls, and is currently playing for the national tour of the Broadway company of Mean Girls. He's also best known as a drummer for his band himself, the Barnstorm, along with being a drum player for Paul Lauren and many others to include. Here at My World with Stories podcast, I'm so honored to present Dave LeBlanc as my guest for today's episode.
Hey, Brooke. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
So, how did you first get started slash introduced to playing the drums, where you are today?
Oh man. Um, let's see. I started playing drums when I was 6 years old. My dad was a drummer and my grandpa was a drummer, so we had a drum set in the house. And I started to play just kind of any styles, really. I just played anything I could listen to and just would jam out in my basement. We had a drum set in the basement, and I just kind of worked on it from there. And I've been playing ever since. So I'm 31, so I've been playing for 25 years.
Cool. How did you realize that you're good at this and that maybe you could make it into something?
My mom actually was the first person who really encouraged me to make a career out of it. I remember being I was like maybe 12 or 13, and me and my buddy started to form a band. And I remember her being like, you should go for it. Like you can do this. Like you can make a career out of this. Like you can be, big time or whatever that means. And I remember my mom being one of the very first people who sort of gave me permission to go about it in that way. And then as I got older, I started to get involved in different things, and I started to get paid. Actually, my very first paid gig was a theater gig. It was Pippin. I was a sub drummer for the musical Pippin in like the local theater company in Nashua. And that was my very first gig. And I think my mom still has it, the check. It was a check for $75. And I was the sub drummer because the main drummer also did snow plowing. So in case there was a big snowstorm and he had to called out to go plow driveways, I would be called in to be the drummer, which is the most New Hampshire thing ever, to have to call out to do snow plowing. So, but yeah, that's like I started to get involved in the local theater playing drums, and they would pay me. And that's how I sort of figured out like, okay, you can do this, as a career path.
Cool. I heard that you went to UNH for college. What did you particularly study? Was it band stuff?
Yeah. So I was a marketing major. I studied business.
Yeah.
I studied business marketing.
Mhm.
I actually auditioned for the music program and didn't get in. Partly because it was a classical music program and I didn't really know how to play classical drums. So that was part of the reason. I think I didn't get into the academic side of music until later. In like my early 20s is when I started to learn how to really understand and read music and follow a conductor and that type of thing. Yeah, so I went to college at UNH for business. I had a rock band. I was in a band with my buddies. I had a buddy from high school, and we met another dude there named Nick, who's still a good friend of mine. And I'm, in his wedding. I'm going to be in, we met 15 years ago, and I'm going to be in his wedding in a few months. We had a band in college, and we just played at like the local cafes, and we played at local venues in New Hampshire. And I studied business and got a degree in business, and kind of use that as like a launch pad to get into the professional world, because really professional is professional, right? Like whether it's professional music or professional sales or professional accounting or professional medicine. Like it's professional, and like that is, I think, the core component. And I used my business degree to get into, I got a job in New York doing tech sales. And that's kind of what helped get me in New York, to where I could network and meet the right people and learn and study and be in the mix. So yeah, but I grew up in Nashua, and then I went to UNH, and then I went right to New York. Yep. And outside of the pandemic, I've been there ever since. Now I'm on the road.
Yeah. Who are like your musical inspirations that you looked up to, that you like?
Oh man. There's so many. So I was born in 1990. And my mom was very big into classic rock. So I kind of grew up on a lot of the stuff she was listening to. I listened to a lot of James Taylor. We listened to a lot of country music. We listened to a lot of, like I said, classic rock. Lots of different styles, really. I would say as I became a teenager, I got really into like the Red Hot Chili Peppers and the Foo Fighters. I was really into like rock drumming. There's some influences, some drummer influences I have that I could name that you probably wouldn't know. Some people like kind of deep in the recording, kind of the drummer scene. But yeah, like a lot of like rock influences was big for me. I really loved, like, I was really into like playing with the song, playing to like singer-songwriter stuff. In the early 2000s, when I was like 10, 12, 13, 14, like playing drums, like all of that, like Sarah Bareilles stuff and like Jason Mraz and like, Maroon 5, Matchbox 20, like they were like Third Eye Blind. That was like really popular. So I played a lot to those bands. I would like listen to those bands and play to them. But I also was really into like, the older stuff. Like I said, like a James Taylor or like, Led Zeppelin. I remember a friend of my mom's met me when I was like 12, and he was like, "Oh, you play drums? He's like, you have to listen to Led Zeppelin." And I was like, "Okay, like cool," you know what I mean? And like then I was like, "Oh my God, the drummer named John Bonham was like amazing drummer." So that type of stuff. Obviously the Beatles, like Ringo Starr and the Beatles is like a huge influence. And yeah, but I kind of try to draw influences from all, not just drummers, but all types of music and all, singers too.
So this past year, I know you got back into playing again because due to the pandemic. What's it like, especially like now touring with the national company of Mean Girls?
It's amazing. It's really, I'm really happy to um, be out here and have a gig. Um, you know, the you set out to be a musician, and it's going to be tough, maybe tougher than a more traditional path. Although honestly, there really is no traditional path anymore. Every job is totally changed. The internet totally blew everything up and made everything like, you know, everything's remote, or like everyone has a startup, or like, everyone has like side hustles and side jobs and all these different things, which is amazing, right? So it's actually becoming less untraditional to do something like what I'm doing for work. In fact, you could even say this is kind of like a steady paycheck as a musician, because it's like a weekly thing, and it's like, nothing's guaranteed, but it's like you have the guaranteed like dates on the calendar. So I've honestly really loved it. Coming off of the pandemic where we had no shows at all, it's really special to be playing a show every night with a huge cast, with a huge orchestra, brand new musicians, in every city. It's really awesome. It's hard work because, everyone's in masks, and we're testing all the time, and people, it does happen that people get COVID, and like you have to be careful. But it's worth it, and I'm really proud of like what the company and what everyone's been able to do. To put the show on, like the show must go on, they say, right? And like it's we don't have to do this, right? It's still tough out there with the pandemic, and the fact that everyone's making an effort to get the art out there, I think is really cool, and I'm really proud to be a part of that. So it's been great. You know, it's a really fun gig. Have you listened to the music?
I saw the show, like, it was, like, the last show that I saw right before the pandemic, and, like, I loved it. Like, I'm so
Oh, I'm so glad.
mhm. So what was it like getting your first Broadway gig, as a musician? Like, what did that feel like, getting that job for the first
Oh, it was an amazing feeling. It was nerve-wracking, of course. I was really honored. There's a lot of different ways to get into the Broadway scene. And I wouldn't say like working on it as my main goal. I was doing a lot of things, but I knew it was one of the things I wanted to do was potentially sub or get a show. Because it was a great way to play it at a high level. It was a great way to make money playing, and a lot of the shows nowadays are like rock and fun rock drums stuff. So it was really awesome. I had been in New York for about 6 years, 5 or 6 years, when the stars kind of aligned, and one of my good friends, John Epcar, who was the original drummer on Mean Girls, also the original drummer on Spider-Man, if you remember that show. He's a fantastic drummer, awesome, really awesome guy. He had the Mean Girls drum job, and they had just opened in New York. They had been open for a few months, and how it works is musicians will start to build a sub roster. So the show will open, and there's usually like a 2 to 3 month period where you're not allowed to sub out, where they're getting the show up and running. It's usually before the Tonys. They want the main core band and all the main actors to be there when people come to evaluate the show and nominate it for Tonys and give it the reviews and stuff. But then after the show is kind of up and running, people will start to build out a sub roster. So John had some people that he had used before that he was bringing in, and he happened to need somebody for a specific date that none of his subs could make, and he was like, well, I need to get a new person anyway. I like that. They usually have people usually have anywhere between 3 and 5 subs kind of at the ready. So he reached out to me, and it was amazing. I woke up, it was like I woke up one day, and I was like doing my thing. I wasn't really thinking much of it. And, I woke up and I had an email from John, and it said like Mean Girls sub. And he was like, hey man, would you want to sub for me at Mean Girls on, July 27th? And I was just like looking at my phone, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, like, it was really, really, it was really cool. I was really fortunate. And I happened to know the associate music director as well. So that kind of, helped line it all up, I think, knowing her as well. Her name is Meg Zervulis. She was the music director of The Prom. I don't know if you have heard of that show as well. She was, oh yeah. So she was the music director for The Prom. She's an amazing musician. And her and I had worked together on a Disney Cruise Line show, not on the cruise, but in New York. And she was at Mean Girls at the time. So it all kind of, the things kind of lined up. So that's how I got in. And the feeling was awesome. I, tried to not take it for granted. I prepared, I tried to prepare as best I could. And John he's such a great drummer. So there's, a lot to kind of get ready. And the music, obviously you've heard the music is really intense. It's a lot of music, but it's fun. So yeah, it was really great. I played my first show on a Saturday night, and my mom and sister came, and it was a sold out crowd, and it was the original Broadway cast, which was so cool. And I think a few weeks after that, somebody left. So I remember the first night I did it, it was all the original principals and everyone. So that was like a pretty cool honor as well. Yeah, so that was Mean Girls was my first time. So pre-joining the tour, I had the opportunity to play a good amount in New York as a sub.
you played many venues and places. Is there like one that you love playing, whether it's like if you're touring or not, or is there like one that you like really want to go to one day? Like,
Well, I think probably the venue I want to play the most would be MSG. Um, I'd also love to play the Garden in Boston. Growing up in New Hampshire and Nashua and going to the Garden to see all of my favorite bands over the years, I think there's something really special to me if I could play. Back when I was growing up, it was called the Fleet Center. I don't know if you probably don't remember that. Your parents might remember that. Um, when I was a kid, it was called the Fleet Center for Fleet Bank. And we used to go to the Fleet Center in the 90s and early 2000s to see the Bruins and the Celtics and to see bands play. So it would be really special to play at MSG in New York. It would be really special to play at the Garden in Boston, like to play there and then like walk out and be in Boston, like my hometown, I guess, not really technically, but that would be really, really special. In New York, I kind of came up playing at this venue called Rockwood Music Hall, which is like a small Lower East Side, like 200-300 person venue. It's one of these venues where you just like step onto the stage from the crowd, it's like right there. And that's like where I met my family in New York, where I met a lot of people. It's where I met John, who helped me get into Mean Girls. So playing there would be like it was probably my favorite venue. I think like it's like my home venue. It's where I really matured as a musician and met so many of my friends who are now like family. So yeah, like that's probably my favorite venue that I've played. It's not a theater venue, it's just like a rock venue. And then I guess in terms of theater, like on the tour, we've played some cool spots. The Kennedy Center was pretty sick. Like it was pretty cool to play there. Like we were there for 3 weeks, and there was some like legendary, like there was like other concerts happening in that space, and there was like some legendary stuff happening. Like legendary jazz musicians were playing in the next room over. Like there was on our last night at the Kennedy Center, there was like a gala for Jon Stewart, and Steve Carell was there, Dave Chappelle was there, Tina Fey, actually not Tina. She might have been on the list. Like they were in like the next venue, like the same stage door that I was using, they were using to get to that event. So the Kennedy Center was really, really special too. I think venue wise.
nice. What's tour life like? Because it's not like when you're performing on the same stage every night. Like, is it different? Does like how's that lifestyle like?
Yeah, it's a whole different lifestyle, right? So like specifically with Broadway, for the musicians, you would set up your instrument in the pit, and then it would just live there forever as long as the show runs. It doesn't move, it doesn't change, it just stays there. We have to break everything down every week. So we tear it down and set it up. We tear it down and set up, and there is a huge crew that we tour with. They are incredible. We get to a new town and they set the whole show up. We walk into a theater and it's totally empty, and we set the whole show up on a Monday and a Tuesday, and then we do the show, and then we break it down on Sunday and travel to the next theater, set it up on Monday, Tuesday, do the show. I mean, it is really wild. Specifically from the drumming perspective, like every theater is a little different because the drums are so loud in Mean Girls. I'm in a box. I'm in like an enclosed it's called a drum booth. I'm in like an enclosed box. So the sound is always kind of the same within that box, but it changes. Like in some cities, I might be in the musician's pit, but in some cities, I might be in a totally different room. Like here in Greenville, we're in Greenville. We were just in New Orleans. We were in Dallas, Texas. I was in the pit with the rest of the musicians, but in Greenville here, I'm in a different room. So it's challenging, but exciting. It's challenging in the sense that it always sounds a little different, but our tech crew is amazing to where it really doesn't sound that it's really the same show, you know, in every city. I don't think the audience would be able to, like, I can tell like, oh, the bass drum sounds different here, or like the this sounds different, but like the audience really, I don't think it's so minute. Like it's really the same show in every city. So, you know, I think one day I'll appreciate if I ever have a show where I can just set my drums up and leave them. I'm sure I'll appreciate it, but um, you know, it's like anything in life. It's like challenging and kind of exciting.
Yeah. What is it also like besides being like a musician that tours? Like, what is it also like performing alongside the Barnstorm and Paul Lauren?
Yeah,
Mm.
great job. You did amazing research. So the Barnstorm is a cover band, and we're a, you know, we don't do originals. We cover people's music, and that is a blast. Those guys are like my best friends. I'm taking essentially like a year or so hiatus from that to do this gig. Um, but we have a great time. We have deemed ourselves America's party band, and I think that that's true. You know, you're not going to hear the songs played perfectly. You might hear lyrics. You might hear the first verse and the second verse sung twice, or this first verse sung twice instead of the second verse. But you're going to have a good time. Like if you see Barnstorm, you're going to have a good time. And it's really fun to play with those guys. We've gotten to do some really cool things. We were the wedding band for Keegan Michael Key, who is an actor. He's in the show Key and Peele, and he's done a lot of other things. So we got to do his wedding. We've played at the Super Bowl for a number of years. So we've done it's been a really fun to play with those guys. And Paul, it's been great to play with as well. Him and I have been friends for a number of years, and we've with Paul, I've had the opportunity to make original music. I've recorded for some of his original songs, and then played for him live for a number of years. Obviously the pandemic slowed a lot of that stuff down, but yeah, it's been great to play. It's been great to play with them.
Did Waitress, right?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Yeah. So
I was one of the subs.
Yeah. I see online that Shoshana Bean is likes your stuff.
Yeah, she's a friend. Yeah, we actually worked together. So we met doing Waitress. She was Jenna when I subbed in. And we did 2 or 3 shows at the Waitress Broadway show. And then she did a 9-show residency at 54 Below, which is a cabaret club in New York for theater. And she asked me to be her drummer for that run. So we did like a week and a half long run, completely sold out every night. She brought the house down. It was amazing. So we got to work together for that, and we became friends, and we've stayed in touch, and she's just an amazing person to know and to have in my circle. I'm super grateful for our friendship, and I've learned a lot from her watching her perform. She's definitely one of the most talented people I've ever worked with, and I was shocked. I'd never seen this before. She got a standing ovation before the concert. So we would walk, the band would come on stage and would get ready, and then she'd come out from the back and get on stage, and the entire place would erupt, standing ovation from their seats. I'm like, we haven't played a note, and she's getting a standing ovation. I was like, this is incredible. Tremendous person to be on stage with, supreme talent, and really cares about the craft, but is not over she cared about the music, but also allowed everyone to let's see what you think, let's jam on it, let's hear how it turns out in the moment. Yeah, someone would be really great to work with. So yeah, we met doing Waitress. I only did 15 shows there over the course of a few months, just because I got involved right at the end of the run. But man, what a show, what a band. That band is like incredible. And yeah, got to work with some pretty cool people. Jordan Sparks, from American Idol, she did it, and um Catherine McVie. Jordan Sparks was pretty wild because she was famous when I was your age. Like when I was a freshman in high school, she was like uber famous. So to like do a show with her in New York was, you know, we had like there was like a potluck, and she made like a meal, and we were like backstage just like eating her food, and her family was there, and I was like, this is insane. But it's just like everyone's just people, you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like they're just people. Everyone's just people. Um, but yeah, that was a great experience. I learned a ton from that. I've been really fortunate in the Broadway scene to have like two awesome shows, with great bands, great people, great music. It's been cool.
Like, what's next for you? Like, I obviously you're touring right now. Like, what's next for you? Like, is there any things that you want to chase after or whatsoever?
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing question. I would say the uh I want to do a few things. I want to make my own music, have my own band, my own records. I would love to do clinics and classes. Lessons I do enjoy, but also like to, I think, I have a background in business as well. So I think specifically touching on the like business and art aspect of how to do this, I would love to like have some type of teaching course on that. I want to play arenas. I'd love to tour and play in arenas. Like I said, the Fleet Center, the Garden. That would be a huge dream of mine to be playing in like, I'm such a huge sports fan too. So like to walk into, like the United Center or whatever it's called in Chicago, and like see, like be back in the green room and see Michael Jordan's like stuff hanging there, and like you're going out to play, like that to me, would be so cool, right? Or like to know that like there was a game the night before and now my band's here, like we're backstage, like that. I think playing arenas would be something. And then definitely to have my own Broadway show in New York would be really cool. It's equally as cool to be out here with this company. The only difference is just you can't sub and do other gigs. So like I think you have to do the gig every night. So I think being able to have a Broadway chair in the city, allowing me to be able to sub out and do other gigs and stuff. But yeah, those are some of the things that I'm thinking about to hopefully be doing, and to just keep on, to just keep doing it, to keep making a living playing music. Would be great.
Is there like any social medias where people could follow you or stay updated to see? I know, like, especially with the tour and stuff.
Yeah. So the best place to follow me would be on my Instagram is Dave LeBlanc Drums. At Dave LeBlanc Drums on Instagram. I also have a Facebook page, a personal page, and a business page, Dave LeBlanc Drums. You can find me there. Just search that and you can follow my page. I have a website, daveleblancdrums.com, where you can hear songs I've played on, contact me for like lessons or anything like that, and get any more information. And then I would say, the Mean Girls Instagram is a great way to just keep in touch with what the show is doing. We got a lot of cool places we're going over the next year or so, and I'm excited to continue to hopefully be involved in it.
Awesome. Do you have a show tonight?
Yep, we do. 7:30. I'm in the hotel. It's about 10-minute walk, and head over there and yeah, do it up.
Awesome.
I'm super honored to be a guest. Thanks for having me. So great to connect with you, Brooke. Thanks for having me as a guest, and good luck with everything.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening and watching to My World with Stories podcast. For more info, go to Instagram and Facebook at My World with Stories podcast, and make sure that you give us a like, a subscribe, a follow, whatever you want. Do it because we love you guys so much, and thanks for being with us. Bye!